Hey everybody, thank you for joining. Good to see everybody. Glad to know that there's plenty of people who also don't have much of a life on Saturday at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Okay, so let's get this going. We have some good news, which I'm sure if you followed the news online, you've seen already, which is that Ruben Gallego has defeated Kari Lake. It is official. Kari Lake will not be the next U.S. Senator from Arizona. I think she's still trying to get over the loss that she sustained not becoming the governor of Arizona. If this race is anything like that race, then she will continue to insist that she's both. So really looking forward to Kari Lake being both the governor and the U.S. Senator in exile from the state of Arizona here. So anyway, good news. Ruben Gallego, it is called by Decision Desk HQ. He is the next U.S. Senator from Arizona. So not only do we stave off the Senate falling even more in Republicans' favor, but falling more in Republicans' favor with just like the worst human that we could have possibly asked for. So that is a little bit of good news. Let's move over to the House. So as it stands right now, I know that when we spoke yesterday, we saw that the House was 200 to 212. You can see it's now 209 to 216. Magic number is 218. So really, our path to victory right now has to be flawless. We have no room for error here if we want to be able to retake the House. Today was a good day for Democrats. Again, we went from 200 yesterday to 209 today, so we took 9 seats. Republicans went from 212 to 216, so they took 4 seats. So a better day for Democrats than it was for Republicans. But with regard to where the races are outstanding, this race does not look good. There have been late votes coming in that have been counted in Colorado's 8th congressional district. It does not look like Caraveo, who is the Democratic incumbent, is going to be able to hold on. So that is a race that is not going in Democrats' favor right now. Moving over to Arizona, another race that is not looking in Democrats' favor right now based on the most recent votes that have come in. It doesn't look like Kirsten Engel will be able to retake Juan Ciscomani if Republicans win those 2 races, Arizona's 6th and Colorado's 8th. That'll be it, and Republicans will officially control the House. We do have ongoing counts happening right now. This race has not been called, but it looks like Josh Harder is in good shape. Where's the other one I was looking for? Whitesides has taken the lead. I know yesterday we were speaking about Whitesides being within 1,000 votes, and I told you yesterday that that looks like it, is good news for George Whitesides because the votes that are coming in late are breaking in Democrats' favor, and that's exactly what happened. Now he's got a 2,000 vote lead, and it doesn't look like he's going to be looking back anytime soon. There is also, I believe, where is it? Ken Calvert and Will Rollins. This one, the latest votes that came in broke in Calvert's favor. So a lot of votes still left to be counted. You can see that it says 80% in. I'm not sure how accurate that is, but things haven't been breaking in Will's favor lately, so we'll keep an eye on how that goes. Mary Peltola, who is the Democratic incumbent, she still stands a chance, weirdly, because a lot of the votes outstanding are rural votes, which usually favor Republicans. But in this case, because Peltola has been so strong in terms of native populations, because her focus is on fish, she actually stands to benefit the most from the votes that are outstanding. So we'll keep an eye on how things are going in Alaska. But overall, the general sense of things is, if I had, gun to my head, if I had to put money on who I would rather be here, I would probably rather be the Republicans than the Democrats. But if Republicans win the House majority, they will win it by a very, very slim margin. So we'll be in a not too dissimilar situation to what we're in right now. But again, we'll keep a close eye. Democrats at this point have to be pretty much perfect. We can afford to lose one race. We will likely know within the next 24 hours whether Republicans control the House. There is a world in which we can know late tonight or early tomorrow, but either way, I'll make sure to stay on top of this and follow along. But overall, a rough ride for Democrats in the House, and it will get even tighter. But we'll see how things break on that front. So with that said, that is a little bit of the updates for people who are just joining now who didn't catch the earlier update. Good news out of Arizona. Ruben Gallego has defeated Kerry Lake, and now we are looking at the House and how that looks right now, and whether Democrats still have a chance. Short answer is yes, they still have a chance, but it's a really narrow path to victory. So I'll keep an eye on that, and I'll keep everything updated in terms of how things look moving forward from here. So with that said, let's take the opportunity and answer some questions here. I'm being asked about Lauren Boebert. As far as I know, Lauren Boebert has won her reelection in Colorado's fourth congressional district. Yes, she has won. So Lauren Boebert will be able to grace us with her presence for 2 more years here. Remember, she had to escape the district that she was in because she was running against Adam Fritsch, and he has lost his race as well. So bad news in both of those districts in Colorado. Also, yes, I don't know if I mentioned it, but Jackie Rosen has also won her seat in the Nevada Senate. So good news out of the West Coast U.S. Senate races. Jackie Rosen's held on to her seat. Ruben Gallegos won his seat, and of course, Alyssa Slotkin won her seat, and Tammy Baldwin that was in Michigan. Tammy Baldwin in Wisconsin has won her seat as well. So good news. All where we can find it. Obviously, at the presidential race, it's been pretty cataclysmically bad, but we take whatever wins we can get. And as I said, there's still a very, 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 very narrow path to the House. So we'll keep an eye on that. Okay, let's answer some questions. Make the most of this time. Looking at the map makes me feel kind of like we just need to accept that most of the population is either stupid, racist, or morally bankrupt. Looking at this map should show us, really the number one thing it shows us is that the vast majority of the population, we have to remember, the vast majority of the population doesn't live here. A lot of this is land, and we have more people in one tiny dot in Los Angeles County than we do in like half of the states in this country. So just something to keep on top of mind. But there are a lot of reasons why Democrats lose. Remember, we are contending with a right-wing media ecosystem that has no qualms about lying. In fact, so little qualms about lying that it's part of their business model. Remember, Fox News paid almost $800 million to lie on Trump's behalf. We are contending with a media ecosystem that even at its most legitimate is still paying massive sums of money to be able to lie with impunity. That's at its most legitimate. Now imagine all of the podcasts, all of the shows, all of the fringe networks, all of the TikTok channels and Rumble shows that aren't even held to the same standard as that. So we are contending with a right-wing media ecosystem that is just relentless in its pursuit of lies. I spoke about this on my YouTube channel, but the vast majority of Americans, the most money that was poured into any ad during this election cycle, almost $250 million, was the ad about Kamala Harris supporting gender reassignment surgeries for prison inmates. And not only is that not her position, she's actually, not only was that not her position in this cycle, that a quote that she gave in 2019, she's actually walked away from it. She's been silent about trans issues in this election cycle. And yet Republicans made that the principal issue in this campaign. If you asked anybody out there what Kamala Harris's stance on housing policy, on economic policy, on small business policy, on marijuana legalization, on raising the minimum wage, no one would be able to tell you. But they would be able to tell you what her stance is on gender reassignment surgeries in prison, because that's what right-wing media shoved down people's throats over and over and over again. As I mentioned before, $215 million on what basically amounts to a disinformation campaign. It aired against the the World Series. So of course people saw it. And that's what we're contending with. So it's one thing for us to be able to say, look, we have better policies. We're gonna do what we can to advocate for this stuff, which is what I tried to do on my channels. But you can't win when you go up against, when you are just a few people going up against an entire coordinated, well-structured right-wing media ecosystem that lies as a core principle of their business, as a foundational principle of their business, and says whatever they have to say that's going to be most potent in their fight to make, like, in their fight that is information warfare. And they did that, and we failed at being able to do that. And that's why if you asked anybody in the country what her policy was, they wouldn't be able to tell you. But if you asked anybody in the country what her stance on gender reassignment surgeries for prison inmates was, they would be able to tell you. That is a testament to the asymmetry at play with our media. And it's, I know it sounds like an excuse, but that's the reality of the environment that we live in right now. And you're right, I'm seeing in the comments, Trump literally said trans operations on illegal aliens in prison. He said it. So we might laugh at it, and God knows I did, and mock this kind of stuff. But at the same time, he knew who he was talking to. He knew the audience that he was talking to. And they bought this stuff largely. And so it's like, for people who know the truth and who can recognize fact from fiction and be able to discern fact from fiction, it's laughable. But for a broad swath of the population, when even Trump goes on a debate stage and says that kind of stuff, it is a testament to the fact that that stuff works, that stuff is potent, and he has tapped into some segment of the population who actually believes it. And again, we have so much work to do to be able to reach people, to be able to get good information to people. And I hope to God that it's not too late to be able to reach people, that there isn't some sense of people already being like radicalized by right-wing media, and that there is some hope. I don't want to say deprogram, because it feels like, it has a weird connotation, but that there is some possibility that we'll be able to reach people and just persuade them, is really the word that I should be using here. Is it too late to challenge the results of the election? I wouldn't hang my hat on challenging the results of the election. I at this point, like, yeah, it is. It's just not going to happen. Look, I would love more than anybody for what happened not to have happened, but realistically, I think our energy is better spent not trafficking in denialism. And look, I say that knowing full well that if there was something wrong, I'd be the first person to highlight it. I listen to people who I trust. I have my eyes on the lawyers who I trust and who I work with, and I take my cues from them, because those are smart people who know exactly what's going on. And if they're not sounding the alarm, then I have no reason, unfortunately, to be able to glean any nefarious activity from this where there isn't. So look, I'd love to be able to sit here and traffic in denialism and wish cast a new reality into existence, but I'd rather be honest. And so I think we just have to be honest here. What about the upcoming sentencing? Is that hopeless? So Donald Trump is waiting for, he's waiting on 34 felony counts to be sentenced, and that will be paused because there is OLC guidance, Office of Legal Counsel guidance, that says that a sitting president cannot be indicted. It also means that they can't be prosecuted, and so any pending prosecutions, either at the state or federal level, if they're at the state level, they're going to be paused. Nothing's going to move forward. That means the RICO prosecution in Georgia, where Donald Trump was indicted along with 18 other co-defendants, 4 of them flipped, that will pause for Trump. Fani Willis could still move forward with the prosecutions against the 14 remaining co-defendants. That could still move forward. I hope it does move forward. As far as the sentencing in New York is concerned, that will be paused as well, and there won't be any sentencing. There won't be any sentencing, at least during Trump's term. So we can kind of kick that to 2028 at the earliest, basically. As far as the federal prosecutions are concerned, remember we have the D.C. prosecution and we have the classified documents prosecution. Federal classified documents prosecution was dismissed by Judge Cannon. That was appealed to the 11th Circuit. We're waiting on that right now. I would not hold my breath. Donald Trump's DOJ is going to withdraw its own. Either Jack Smith will dismiss those cases right now, or he could choose not to. He could let Trump appoint an attorney general who will dismiss those cases for him. That will preserve the ability for Jack Smith in the future, or for some prosecutor in the future, to pick up these cases and pick up the prosecutions where they left off. But if Jack Smith dismisses them now, the DOJ preserves no ability in the future to pick them up and prosecute them. So I do hope that Jack Smith doesn't opt to dismiss the case. Instead, he allows Trump's team to corruptly dismiss them. This way he has some argument to be able to say, these cases were corruptly dismissed. We have grounds now to bring them back up and in the future. And again, this is like best case scenario, because I don't know what's going to happen with the DOJ. I don't know what's going to happen 4 years from now. I don't know what the DOJ is going to look like 4 years from now. I don't know if the whole thing is going to be filled with Trump acolytes. We can get into the rabbit hole of the worst that could happen. But in any case, best case scenario right now is that Jack Smith refuses to dismiss. Trump gets an attorney general who dismisses it. Later down the line, if Trump loses the election, we have a Democrat comes in and appoints a Democratic attorney general. That person could argue that the case against Donald Trump was corruptly dismissed, and that there's grounds to resurrect this case and then move forward with it. But again, nobody knows what anything's going to look like. 6 months ago, if you asked me if I even knew who Tim Walz was and would be wearing a hat with his name on it, I'd have told you no. So this notion that we're going to be able to guess in November of 2024 what January of 2029 is going to look like is laughable, to say the least. Am I in favor of an amendment saying a presidential candidate that's convicted or facing felonies cannot be allowed to run? It wouldn't pass. Am I in favor of it? I don't know. I mean, like, what if you have somebody who was wrongly accused of it? What if you have a black guy who was wrongly accused in court, and a white jury convicted them, and now they're a convicted felon, and it was erroneous, and they serve their time, and then they want to run? Can we say no? I think it's hard to say, like, to make blanket. First of all, it's not going to happen because the Republican Party exists to serve Donald Trump, and he's a convicted felon, so they will never vote for it, so it doesn't matter anyway. And if it's a constitutional amendment, then you need like 2/3 of the states to sign on, so it's just moot anyway. But I would be loath, the criminal justice system isn't perfect, and I would be loath to do something, especially where the effects disproportionately impact like black and brown people. Let's see. Do you feel like the American people falsely require a Republican in office to give them permission to feel good about the economy? I think that Republicans require a Republican to be in office to make them feel good about the economy. I guarantee you, February 1 rolls around. February 1st, 2025, we're 10 days into Trump's term. All of a sudden, people on the right start feeling good. Consumer sentiment goes up on the right. They say, you know what, this is a great stock market. This is a great economy. Look at all these jobs that are being added. Manufacturing is booming. And all these people who right now think that they are in the worst economy on God's green earth, they're going to have a change of heart once the president has an R next to his name and not a D next to his name. I guarantee you, mark my words, that is what is going to happen. So, look, people's perceptions about the economy, in large part, not everybody, but the partisans, is a function of who's in office. And Democrats are guilty of it too. But all of these people who are right now arguing against Joe Biden's terrible economy, you've never had it as bad as you do right now, even though we've had 16 million new jobs, even though the unemployment rate's at a 50-year low, even though the stock market's at a record high, even though the U.S. has the strongest economy in the world, none of that matters. They all claim this is the worst economy that they've ever contended with. All those people are going to feel real good come January 21st, February 1st, March 1st, and we'll be, it'll be 99.5% Biden's economy and 0.5% Trump's economy, and he will get full credit. He'll get full credit when jobs continue to come about as the result of the CHIPS Act and the Inflation Reduction Act. He'll get full credit for unemployment being as low as it's at right now. There is a cognitive dissonance at play between, depending on who's in office, and so I think that's going to be a pretty frustrating time when Trump finally takes office to hear what Fox and Friends and Fox Business have to say about the economy, the same economy that they're complaining about right now. Who do I think the presidential nominee should be in 2028? This is such an impossible question to answer because every time an election's coming up, we just don't know what the world is going to look like. 6 months before COVID, could you have imagined the political environment, in December of 2019? Could you have imagined 3 months later what the political environment would look like? Just like, in May of this year, May of 2024, could you have imagined that within 3 months we would be cheering for Kamala Harris to win the presidency and for some guy named Tim Walz, the apparent governor of Minnesota, to be the vice president? So you just never know, and it's impossible for me to sit here in November of 2024 and say that this is who I think it should be. Let's talk about who I think it's. If it was today, who would have a chance at being in the conversation. The reality is that I don't know. If I had to guess, if I had to predict, and this is not saying what I think one way or the other, but I think that Democrats will probably be afraid to nominate another woman after Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris. And so if I had to put my money on it, I would say they nominate a male, and the people in the conversation would probably be somewhere in the ballpark of Gavin Newsom, Pete Buttigieg. I think that the creativity, I don't know if you'll see the Democratic Party nominate a person of color. I don't know if you'll see the Democratic Party nominate a woman. I think the Democratic Party will probably revert back to some semblance of a white guy, to be perfectly honest, if I had to put my money on it. I don't even know if the Democratic Party would have the courage to nominate Pete because he's gay. I just don't know. But I mean, look, you don't know what the political environment is going to look like again 3 years from now or something like that. So I'm not sure what it's going to look like. If I had to guess again, I mean, Pete, I would say, is in the conversation. Newsom, I would say, is in the conversation. Josh Shapiro is probably in the conversation. I'm sure I'm missing somebody. Andy Bashir, yes, thank you. I was told. Wes Moore is a great option too. Black guy. I don't know. Are Democrats gonna shy away from that? He's awesome. Wes Moore is the governor of Maryland. So I don't know. John Ossoff, he's probably young for that. So I don't know. I mean, he's super strong, and also, would you want to like sacrifice a Senate seat in Georgia? So I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, again, this is all conjecture at this point, and it's sad that we have to talk in November of 2024 when we should have been applauding Kamala winning. We have to talk about, who might be potential candidates for 2028, but here we are. Our messaging needs to be more digestible in layman, in my opinion. Trump paraded around inaccurate information through slogans, and it caught on the point that it became reality to low information voters. Policy details go over most people's heads. I agree. I've thought about it even in the way that I communicate. I mean, God knows how many times I've talked about like the CPI for the inflation rate, and I'm guilty of it. Like talking in macroeconomic terms that I don't think people can understand. And even if they do understand it, frankly, if you're trying to win an election and you're explaining to people how the GDP is higher in the US than in any other country in the world, and how the S&P hit a fresh record high, I don't think that that's going to resonate with people who are contending with high inflation and, all they care about, they don't care that our economy is doing better, has a faster recovery than Portugal's economy because they don't live in Portugal and they don't give a shit about Portugal. They care about the price of eggs here compared to how it was 6 months ago. And it's just going to be something that I think about in terms of my coverage moving forward. And I think all Democrats can pretty much benefit from talking in a way that's a little bit more relatable to regular people. I think Democrats need to start going on some of the right-wing talk shows and podcasts like Joe Rogan. Totally. My podcast this week, I do a once weekly podcast called No Lie. If anybody listens to like audio podcasts, you can go and subscribe to that. Otherwise, I put the full episodes, video episodes on YouTube. But in my episode this week, I literally say that Democrats need to go on these shows and meet people where they are and not be so worried about like, oh, I don't want to validate these platforms. I don't want to platform Joe Rogan or Theo Von or like they're platformed. And not only are they platformed, they've got millions and millions of viewers. In fact, they've got more viewers than us. So this notion that we're doing some favor to them by like conferring some degree of legitimacy onto them, like it's not happening. And in fact, it's even worse because if we don't go onto these networks, if we don't go onto Fox News or Newsmax or any of the, like, if I don't go onto Piers Morgan's show, what does that do? It leaves a vacuum where I'm not there to defend our side. And so who is? Nobody. And then the only thing the audience gets is one side's perception of things, one side's argument for things. And so I would rather be there to fight back and like make a case for our side than just have nobody there and just kind of cede all of that ground to the right. And so I go on Chris Cuomo's show as much as I can. I go on Piers Morgan's show as much as I can. And I think it's important to do that because I'd rather the audience hear my case than just worry about like, oh, I don't want to validate these people. They're validated. They're legitimized. They've got millions of viewers already. That ship has sailed. So I think the better bet here is to go on there and make your case to people, to an audience that might not be completely on board. I think that's going to be way more effective in the grand scheme of things than not. So like if I have the opportunity to go on Piers, if I have the opportunity to go on Fox, which never going to happen. I mean, they're not going to invite me on. I've even tried reaching out to Fox News to see if their hosts will come on my show, and they say no across the board. I've never gotten a yes from any time I've asked. Even people like Jessica Tarlov and Chris Wallace back when he worked there, they always said no across the board. Here's a great one. You should make an economy special every 6 months, starting now, of the gas prices, grocery items, fast food, and car prices. Do this every 6 months till the next election. That is so smart. Just to like all those people who basically said that gas prices are too high. Let's see what the gas prices cost when Trump becomes president. All the people that said grocery prices are too high, all the people that said car prices are too high, especially when these tariffs are imposed. If Donald Trump is successful in his effort to get tariffs imposed against the entire country, and we see like 20, 60, 100, 200% tariffs on every good entering the United States, let's see what cars cost then. When he starts some trade war with China or with with Russia or their axis of power. Let's see what gas prices cost. Let's see what food prices cost. So I think that's a brilliant idea to just keep track of all of these prices that were completely unacceptable when Joe Biden was in office. But let's see how permissible they'll think these prices are once Donald Trump is in office. And I guarantee you'll have people who will look at eggs at $2.99 per dozen of eggs and say this is the worst economy in the world. I can't even afford to like breathe air right now. And then Trump is in office and eggs are $2.99 and all of a sudden they're like, thank God I can finally afford to live. I guarantee you there's going to be people like that. I guarantee you there's people for whom when a Toyota Tundra costs $40,000 when Biden's president, and now all of a sudden it costs $50,000 when Trump's president, they're going to say, thank God prices have gone down. And we'll be able to show them the difference in prices between like a Toyota Tundra when Biden was president versus when Trump is president. Guaranteed. But I'm going to keep track. That's a perfect idea. I'm going to keep a spreadsheet and I'll update it every month. And we'll see whether prices go up or down on all commodities and common goods, insurance, whatever it is that Donald Trump wants to claim that he was going to bring the prices down for, the things he complained about when Biden was in office, and just get a sense of how the right-wing media ecosystem treats him now that he's got an R next to his name in the presidency. And we'll see if he's successful at getting food prices down, gas prices down, housing prices down, rent prices down, car prices down, all the things that he said that he blamed Joe Biden and the Democrats for when we were in power. I am excited for that. That'll be like my pet project, because I would love to see the impact that global tariffs, that American tariffs have on against all global goods coming into the U.S. I would love to see A, the impact that has on goods, and B, how people react when especially on Fox News, when those prices start to go up. If they even acknowledge their existence, if they even acknowledge it. You have to make these into memes to infiltrate the right to these low information voters, and they only understand memes. It's a good idea. I mean, it's smart. It's not going to be just me going on YouTube or Twitch or Facebook and just saying like this is what happened. Look at the cost of the consumer sentiment is high, but the cost of groceries, the cost of eggs is up 4%. Like, it's not going to be that. It's going to be putting things in digestible formats that people can actually appreciate. It's exactly the right point. Do we have, okay, I'm getting, for people joining right now, do we have a reasonable path to win the House? We have a path to win the House, but it's narrow. It's very narrow. We have to pretty much be perfect. If Republicans win 2 more seats, they win the House. That means we can afford to sacrifice 1. As I was saying at the beginning of this live stream, if you look at this race right here, Colorado's 8th, we are probably on track to lose this race. And if you look at this race, Arizona's 6th, we're probably on track to lose this race as well. There are other races, plenty of them in California. These races out here, let me see, are probably, a lot of them are going to fall in Democrats' favor. George Whitesides is going to win. Not sure about Ken Calvert and Will Rollins. That's going to be a tight one too. Not looking great for us because of the margin right now. But in any case, we have a margin of about 2 votes right now, clearly 2 seats right now, and I would probably, realistically speaking, as much as I wish this wasn't the case, I would rather be Republicans than Democrats right now as far as the House is concerned. I'm also getting the question, and I spoke about this at the top, but is there a chance that our checks and balances can fail and Trump becomes our first dictator? He's got the Senate and the House and the Supreme Court. Look, I don't know what can happen. It certainly is like metaphysically possible. It's not likely, but then again, a lot of things aren't likely. Like Trump winning, winning the popular vote and all of the swing states wasn't likely, but it happened. So I don't know. I mean, there is a possibility that when he has every branch of government, that if people just decide to have no integrity, decide to defer to him over the Constitution, that yeah, I mean, he can consolidate power. If he enacts Schedule F and all of our career civil servants, hundreds of thousands of them, become political appointees who can be dismissed, and then Donald Trump replaces them with political appointees who are loyal not to the Constitution, but rather to the president, and all of a sudden they validate claims of fraud in Democratic population centers, and they say all the votes in Detroit were rigged, and all of the votes in Milwaukee and Philadelphia are there was fraud, and we have to throw these votes. Like, I don't know what he can do. We've seen the lengths that he went to once in 2020 to try and claim fraud, so nothing is off the table when it comes to Donald Trump. So I'm not sure, but what I would say is this, before I strike the fear of God into anybody watching, is that we have plenty of time to worry about things that could happen. So 2 things on that. 1, don't worry right now because there's nothing we can do about it at this moment, and there's no indication that it's happening at this moment. So no need to, we gain nothing by falling into a pit of despair right now. And the second is that is a reminder that we have a lot of really smart, really capable attorneys, lawyers, officials, congresspeople, senators, counsel who are working to make sure that doesn't happen, and will spring into action the moment something feels illegal. And I know that it's cold comfort for me to say that there's smart people in positions of power who will work against this, but there will be, and folks like me and all of you on the outside will be ready to do what we have to do in the court of public opinion to make sure that we prevent something like that from happening too. So, but again, there's like, it's the Mark Eliases of the world that give me some solace here. But in the meantime, like there's no reason to despair right now today. We'll have opportunities to despair, I'm sure, but at least for right now, try to breathe easy insofar as you can. Is there any chance that any Republicans against Trump putting any speed bumps in Trump's way? What do you think of some of the Republicans who are starting to regret their Trump vote? Okay, so I don't think that there's going to be many Republicans who serve as an obstacle to Trump's power. I just think the writing is on the wall that these people are completely servile to Trump, completely in his pocket. And especially after winning the way he did and even outperforming a lot of these Republican Senate candidates, it shows that he has more of a mandate than anybody else in the party. So I don't think that there's going to be many Republicans who have a spine. There weren't many Republicans who had a spine prior to this. The notion that they'll grow one now after winning the popular vote, after winning 312 electoral votes, is so slim. I just would not bank on it. Like, what are we going to pin our hope on like Susan Collins being concerned about something, showing grave concern, and her swooping in as the white knight. I just don't think it's going to happen. Assuming Trump does win the House, I don't think he would have the super majorities to do the things that he wants. Correct. He wouldn't have a big enough majority to overcome the filibuster in the Senate. So the only way that they could pass, which is not to say that they won't still try to get things through. Remember, Republicans' priorities, their principal priorities are two things: confirming judges, which the filibuster was already nuked on. That means you can confirm judges with a simple majority, 51 votes, and also budget items. And so allocating money to something or starving money to something, and they can do that with 51 votes. And so if they want to defund the Department of Education, they may be successful at doing that. If they want to starve federal agencies that they think are part of the deep state, they may be able to do that. I don't know the intricacies of this, and it's never happened, so we have no precedent for it, but they may be able to do that. One thing that they may be able to do also is eliminate the filibuster themselves. So if they want to actually affirmatively pass legislation, they could do that as well. The downside is that if Democrats take power again, then they have no filibuster and they can pass, a Voting Rights Act and codify Roe. But what if Republicans pass, stuff to solidify their control? What if they take office and pass a national voter ID law that also says that every state's maps can be redrawn by the legislature, or the legislature has sole ability to determine like what happens in elections, and they can't be subject to any oversight by judges or the governor? That's called the independent state legislature theory. That's a radical theory that's even been blocked by this Supreme Court. But what if they make that into law? I'm not sure. I mean, it all really depends. But right now, on its face, it looks like Trump will not have a majority to pass legislation in the Senate because you need 60 votes, and he won't have that. How are so many down ballots going Democrat, but the top of the ticket went Trump? Who voted Trump plus Ruben Gallego, for example? Look, it's not abnormal to see that happening. And also, we've spoken at the top of this live stream about how a lot of people were ill-informed or misinformed about what Kamala Harris stands for. They didn't know her policies, and instead all they heard on an endless loop as the result of a $250 million disinformation campaign, commercial campaign, was that all she stands for is gender reassignment surgeries for prison inmates. So people could see that and say, look, I don't know Kamala Harris. She had 100 days to introduce herself to the American people who largely don't pay attention to politics. And they could say, I don't know about her, but I've heard for the last 3 years that the economy was great under Trump, and so I'm just going to vote for Trump. But maybe more locally, they have heard about Carrie Lake, for example, and how crazy she is. And so they can say, I don't know enough about Kamala Harris. I do know enough about Trump. Maybe I don't like his tweets, but the economy felt strong, and things were cheaper when he was in office, so I'll vote for him. But I also know Carrie Lake, and she seems crazy, so I'll vote for Ruben Gallego. People are weird. Voters are super weird. And during primaries, you will see people out there who are like nonpartisans, who we saw in 2020, was it 2020 or 2016? I can't remember right now. But whenever the last Democratic primary was, I think it was 2020 or 2016. I'm not sure. We saw voters who were like, "Oh, my first choice is Bernie Sanders. Otherwise, it's Trump. Otherwise, it's Pete Buttigieg, or otherwise, it's Ted Cruz." And it's like, what semblance of a linear political ideology does that follow? But the answer is that for a lot of people, there is no linear political ideology. It's just people like different people, and it doesn't doesn't necessarily make sense to political junkies, but to them, they heard something that they liked from this person, and then this person, and then this person, and then this person. That's just how it goes with voters. And I'm getting a good point too. Probably worth mentioning, a lot of people think both parties are the same, that politics are just that it's politics, that everybody's corrupt, and you just like, a lot of people vote because they want to see somebody blow up the system. And that's what Trump offered for a lot of people. And they saw in Kamala Harris somebody who was part of the establishment, somebody who was a prosecutor, who was in the system for years. And in Trump, they just, they've felt that the system doesn't work for them, and they don't give a shit. And they just want to burn the whole thing down, because what do they have to lose? And so for a lot of people who run as outsiders or as anti-establishment, like the Bernie Sanders folks, that's enough for them. And there's a reason that that's attractive. And Trump, I think, exploited that idea. That's why he ran such a populist campaign. That's why he says that Democrats are swamp creatures, even though, talk about Democrats are swamp creatures or elites. Meanwhile, the guy is a billionaire whose campaign is propped up by the literal richest person in the world. And yet they have the audacity to call the Democrats the elites. But the fact is they do it. And the fact is that people believe it. So there is potency in that message. He obviously tapped into something that was resonant with a lot of people, because, we're looking right now at the election results, and let's see. And, he got 4 million more votes than Kamala Harris, or just a little fewer than 4 million votes, but regardless. To be fair, we went with Biden partially because he was familiar already, so I feel like if Harris ran again, she could win after getting to know her better. Yeah, it's possible. It's certainly within the realm of possibility. And Biden did benefit from high name ID, but at this point, I think that Kamala's not going to run again. I don't know that we've seen a candidate other than Trump. I don't know that we've seen, but Trump was the incumbent. I don't know if we've seen a never elected presidential candidate run again and certainly win, at least in my lifetime. Who has it been? Al Gore didn't run again, John Kerry didn't run again, Hillary Clinton didn't run again. So I just don't think that we're going to see Kamala enter back into the political scene. Do I believe we'll have a fully Republican government? If I had to put money on it, yes, I would say that we probably will. I'm being told that in the 50s it happened. So I think that proves my point. Nixon lost in 1960, sat out in 64, and then won in 68. So there you go. When we're reaching back 50, half a century ago, that probably puts on full display, the extent to which it's probably not a viable strategy in 2024 or 2028 rather. Biden should put 4 justices on the Supreme Court before he leaves. No reason not to at this point. I think that would have to be done through an act of Congress. So I get that there's no reason not to more broadly, but it's not gonna happen as Republicans control the House. Biden has absolute power and needs to take some steps to protect us. Is he going to sit around until January and shake Trump's hand on the way out? And the answer to that, sadly, is yes. That's exactly what he's going to do. That's what he's going to do. Biden will give Trump everything Trump deprived him of getting when he won the 2020 election. Biden will hand it back to him. because Democrats give goodwill to Republicans in hopes that it'll be reciprocated, and it never is. But still we do it every single time because we are Charlie Brown holding the football. And we are Lucy holding the football and Charlie Brown trying to kick it and it getting pulled away, and nothing ever changes. And we are in a doom loop. And until we have Democrats who understand the moment that we're in and the urgency that it deserves, and who have fight in them, instead of this misguided allegiance to bipartisanship and unity that only one side of the government actually shows, until we have Democrats who have fight in them, it's going to stay the same. And we're going to continue having people lead us who, again, keep conferring all of this goodwill onto Republicans, waiting for it to be returned, waiting for it to be reciprocated. It'll never be reciprocated, and it'll come around again, and we'll do the same thing again. And that is, if you're looking for the definition of insanity, it is doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result. And sometimes it feels insane to be a Democrat because of that exact reason. So as sad as it is, yes, Biden will shake Trump's hand on the way out. Is there a way to beat Republicans in 2028? We need to win the messaging wars. My sincere belief is that it doesn't matter how good your policies are. Look, anybody who's watched my videos knows that Democrats had probably the most successful 2 years of any administration in modern American history. CHIPS Act, PACT Act, bipartisan infrastructure law, gun safety law, American Rescue Plan, Inflation Reduction Act, 16 million jobs added, lowest unemployment rate in 50 years, record high stock market, strongest economy in the world, and no recession in the aftermath of COVID. That's a great list of achievements right there. If nobody knows what you've done, it matters for nothing. It counts for nothing, and you get no credit for it. And Republicans have been so successful in devaluing the accomplishments of this administration to the point where not only do people not know about it, but people think that the economic situation in this country is probably the worst it's ever been, and we're pretty much leading the world. So we have to be better messengers at our successes, and we need a media infrastructure that's able to contend with what's happening on the right, because we will lose every time so long as Republicans have, starting at 5 a.m, Fox and Friends, and all of their podcasts, and Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly and Steve Bannon and the Daily Wire, and all of their influencers, Jack Posobiec and Tim Pool and Ben Shapiro and Newsmax and OAN and Rumble and TikTok and YouTube and Facebook, all of which they dominate the left on. And then in the evening, they have Laura Ingraham and Judge Jeanine and Jesse Waters and Greg Gutfeld. And there are just so many people on the right. And Republicans lay hands on these people. They validate them every chance they get. And Democrats just don't do that. If there's a juicy story, Democrats give it to Politico. And then Politico turns around and does both sides of them, and the Democrats get so mad. But think about the last time that real news was broken on independent progressive media. Think about the last time you heard some major announcement on independent progressive media. Never hear it. It's always on CNN or Politico or New York Times or Washington Post or ABC. Never on independent progressive media. Now think about when the last time you heard Republicans make some major announcement on mainstream media. Never. They give their big announcements to Breitbart or Daily Wire or Clay Travis or some of these they always take care of their influencer class and their alternative media, who then grow as a result of that big juicy moment. And those people then go out and they become tribunes to more people out there. The left just doesn't do it. We decide, we're going to give any big announcements. Well, we got to be very proper about this. We got to go to sit down with 60 Minutes and deliver some announcement. And those people don't take care of Democrats. That's not partisan independent media for the Democrats. And so those people aren't going to help spread the message, but there's that asymmetry at play. Republicans take care and grow right-wing media. Democrats don't. They'll acknowledge, they'll tolerate left-wing media, they'll make appearances, but there's really no effort, no coordinated effort to grow independent progressive media on the left. And that is killing us. Which is not to say, by the way, that we should be like, that we should do what Fox does. Lie. Like you can be virtuous and have integrity and tell the truth, and it's just a matter of size and influence, and we just can't compete right now. Have I heard whispers of them embracing online influencers more? I haven't heard whispers, but I know that they have to see it. And I've heard more and more and more people. I've been beating this drum about growing progressive independent media forever. I literally wrote a book about it. My book is called Shameless, and it is about how we are losing the information wars and how Democrats need to embrace progressive independent media. I literally wrote a book about it. So, but now I'm seeing a lot more articles, a lot of people talking about it. All of the people on Twitter are talking about it. All of the people on YouTube are talking about it. So hopefully it's going to stick now. And it's a real shame that it took what happened in this election for people to finally recognize, hey, maybe we shouldn't have wasted all this time giving all of our attention, all of our newsy bits, all of our interviews to a mainstream media ecosystem that will only engage in both sidesism and is not on our team, but they have. And maybe now will finally be the kick in the ass that they need to change things. Have I ever thought about building my own media company like Daily Wire for the left? I have thought about it, and I almost did it 2 years ago. But I figured it would be so much administrative work and so little time to actually create content that I decided against it. And I still feel that way. I feel like it would be so much administrative work, and really what I want to do, and I'm already so bandwidth limited with all of my work that I feel like if I brought more responsibilities on, like starting a media company, I would just not be able to get out there and just talk to people. And I think that's the most important thing. Will I continue my class with Jamie Raskin? Absolutely. I'm going to continue my regular content. I have, on YouTube, I've got Legal Breakdown with Glenn Kirshner, where we discuss all the legal cases. I've got Democracy Watch with Mark Elias, and that'll be especially important as, both of those are going to be important as Trump tries to run roughshod over our laws and democracy in the coming months and years. I've got my show with Tim Miller. And of course, I have class with Jamie Raskin, and I'll continue all of them. Okay. Do you think you have what it takes to run for office? You just turned 35. I did just turn 35. Well, not just. I'm 35. I wouldn't run for office. No. I think that we have so few folks in the media on the left, in independent progressive media, that it would be crazy for me to give up this spot, especially as I've dedicated like my entire life to building up progressive media and supporting other channels that do progressive media. And so no, there's people that are so capable and so smart, and I wouldn't be any better than any smart, capable legislator. So let them do the legislating. And like, if we have an opportunity with me to get some eyeballs on YouTube and Twitch and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat, then like, let's keep that. But I don't want to relinquish one of the few channels that we actually do have. Okay, and I think I'll call it there because it's 11 o'clock on Saturday East Coast, and 8 o'clock my time, and I'm probably gonna eat some food now. So let's do one more question in the meantime. And before I answer this question, if anybody hasn't yet followed my channel, if you haven't followed on Twitch or subscribed on YouTube, that would be the best way to support my work. As you know, I don't do any sponsorships or paid ads. I never put my content behind a paywall. I don't believe in it. But the best way to support me is just to hit the subscribe or follow button. That is definitely appreciated. Thank you in advance. Okay. Okay, here's a good question. I think this is a good one to end on. Do I think the problem that progressive media has versus right-wing media is that progressives are willing to be critical of politicians and right-wingers are bootlickers? So I was just talking about my book. I wrote in my book that conservatives bolster their conservative, or like Republicans, like right-wingers bolster their conservative bona fides by advocating for the Republican Party. On the left-wingers bolster their liberal or progressive bona fides by being critical of the Democratic Party. So you have this massive asymmetry where right-wing media has its influencers who are so critical of the left and who only parade around and elevate the Republican Party. And then on the left, you have them being critical of the Democratic Party also. And so, like, who needs enemies when you have friends like these? Like, both sides hate the Democratic Party, and that's how you bolster your street cred on both sides. So yeah, there's a huge asymmetry here. And that's not to say that we need media that's just going to be unapologetically democratic or like state media, because you can't. You shouldn't do that. And I think that's going to hurt your credibility too. But the asymmetry at play is so great. And you do need people, even if they're not going to advocate for every move the Democratic Party makes. You can advocate for progressivism. You can be an unapologetically pro-democracy, pro-progressive media ecosystem. And if the Democrats are being progressive, then you applaud it and you call them out and you thank them for that. And so you draw attention to it. And right now we don't have that because we have like personalities on the left who just get their rocks off by elevating, by talking about how terrible the Democrats are. And when you compare that to what the right does, which is elevate Donald Trump as some deity that we all have to show slavish devotion to, of course Republicans win. What are you gonna what content is gonna filter you into being a Democratic voter more? The I hate Democrats content from left-wingers or the I hate Democrats content from right-wingers? It doesn't, of course you're not going to be more inclined to vote for Democrats watching content like that. And again, it doesn't mean that we have to be bootlickers on the left. I'm not advocating for Fox and Friends on the left, but I am saying that there's got to be a middle ground between I'm a leftist who hates Democrats and and the North Korea state TV lady when it comes to Democrats. I'm sure there's a middle ground in there. So that's where we're at on that. Okay, we will leave it there. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate it. I'll come back tomorrow. I hope these informal chats where I'm able to answer questions as opposed to doing my regular video content where I choose the topic is helpful for people. I hope you enjoy it. And I appreciate you all tuning in, especially so late on a Saturday night. So thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Thanks, everybody.